Chris, it's good
Anthony
to see you.
Franco, how are you today on a fine Monday afternoon in Denver, Colorado?
I'm really looking forward to today's episode because I'm broke, and I need to figure out where I can go get some money. So hopefully that's what this guy's going to talk to us about.
I'm pretty sure that's what Dwight's going to tell us, Anthony.
Is it that, or do I need money? Is he going to tell me how to save the money I don't have? I'm wondering if I'm going to be not the target audience for this.
I'm just going to say this is today on How to Founder. It's how to get rich without doing anything. It's just
well, the reason why I'm broke is I just got back from Disneyland, so I have no money left. My pockets are empty. That was an expensive trip.
Goofy will take that money from you, man. Minnie and Mickey.
And I try not to call my wife that. So let's keep moving.
Anthony, why do smart founders make dumb money decisions? Shocking stat: 78% of business failures trace back to personal financial stress, not business problems. That is a shocking stat. Warren Buffett once said, the best investment you can make is in yourself. But most founders invest in everything except their own financial education. Today, Anthony, on How to Founder, we're going to be talking about managing personal finances. I'm your host, Chris Franks, and with me is Anthony Franco. You're looking fine and spry, but we are lucky enough to have Mr. Dwight R Heck.
Chris, you're not looking that good today.
I rarely do.
Wait. Oh, that's better. Never mind.
I didn't need to dim. Mr. Dwight R Heck transformed his paycheck to paycheck struggle into a 20+ year finance career, helping families and entrepreneurs build wealth while raising 5 kids as a single dad. He now runs Give a Heck Financial and hosts a Give a Heck podcast, blending heart-centered storytelling with battle-testing money strategy. Dwight, welcome. It is great to see you. You have a terrific haircut. You're a fine, handsome person, unlike,
Yeah, just a second. He'll get better. I'm going to do this.
You can't play the same joke twice, Dwight. You can't do that. There's a strict rule on the How to Founder podcast.
Especially when you're
109 episodes.
Especially when you pick on the same person. Come on, I'm sitting here off stage laughing my proverbial butt off.
I mean, well, you're the one person that actually laughs. We appreciate it.
Oh, gosh.
Why does this matter? Why do I need, as a founder, why do I need to care about my personal finances so much? Why is it so important to me in my founder and entrepreneurial journey?
Well, do you like having a roof over your head?
I mean, sometimes I behave like I don't, but I actually do. I actually prefer to have a house.
Well, at the end of the day, our money monsters, our learned behaviors from when we're childhood, it's not as simple as just answering that with one little specific sentence. It's something I've found out and discovered through my own life, my own quiet desperation, hamster wheel life, raising family, and wondering how I'm going to get ahead, and realizing that, my personal finances, on top of my personal 6 inches between my ears, needs to be in check. So I needed to understand the rules of the money game, which were not taught pretty much anywhere in the world, because I do coaching around the world. People don't understand the inflows and outflows of money. So as a personal person, let's take ourselves outside the founders or starting to be an entrepreneur. You're struggling with money. You have more month than money. You're day 20 of the month and you've already run out of money. You're going into line of credit, overdraft, et cetera, to survive. Now, you've got a great idea. You start your own entrepreneurship. Maybe you start a brick and mortar entrepreneurship. And you are trying to run that business like you run your personal life. You don't know where the money is, is consistently coming in. You don't track things and you don't have a goal. You don't know what your goals are. And people say, well, how does a budget tie into your goals? Well, if you have goals and you don't have money to achieve the goal, what's going to happen? More times than not, statistically, when you do what's called a cost profit benefit analysis, most banks or lending institutions, even to get an operating line of credit, look at your game plan. What's your goals? What do you have laid out? What are you going to do to accomplish all this? And you better have done it by 5 years, right? And most people don't realize that. Well, if you're already struggling with personal finance and you make $1,000 a month, we're just going to say something really low, but you're spending $1,400 every month, then you have a passion and you start a business, what's going to leak into your business? Your lack of financial control in your own personal life, because a business is an entity. Yes, folks listening, a business is a personality and has an entity. My business, Give a Heck, has a personality. It has a brand. It has a voice. I give it that voice. And if my voice is tainted, not knowing the knowledge that I need to succeed in business, it's going to seep into my business. And that's why most small business owners, entrepreneurs fail. So you really need to understand your personal finances. And it all starts with a real thing called a relationship. Communication, getting understanding of what that person's going through, finding their money monsters, their life monsters, coaching them through it so they understand what they really want. Get to the root of it. It takes time. I'm not telling anybody this is just overnight. And then taking that goal setting to figure out your numbers and put together a life plan, right? A business plan to succeed. I know that's a little bit more than you wanted, but
no, it's a great start. It's just, I'm sitting here reflecting on this. Why are we as founders, we can be the most disciplined financial operators, but how many founders do you know are absolute disasters when it comes to personal finance? Like, we're just terrible at this as a species, Anthony. Why? Why are we so bad at it?
Well, I mean, no, I wouldn't say entrepreneurs, all entrepreneurs are bad at money. Some of them are really good at money. And some entrepreneurs aren't. I mean, it's hard to argue all the famous entrepreneurs were bad with money, right? Everybody the list of entrepreneurs, like Steve Jobs, was he bad with money?
No, he's terrific. I think
Jeff Bezos, like.
Yeah, but early stage, it's almost impossible to do a cost benefit analysis and say that Steve Jobs should have, quit his great career as an engineer and started Apple. Like, those are not always the most obvious decisions. In retrospect, they looked great.
Yeah, why are entrepreneurs? So many entrepreneurs are bad with money, and that is because I don't think we do it for the money. We do it for the ego. Right? Or because we want to make something better in the world. Because I'm a builder. I'm a product guy. So having to balance my checkbook every month it's not that I don't see the value in it. It's like it takes me away from building. Maybe that's what it is. That's what it is. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm bad at managing money, but it's the last thing I want to do.
It's a fair point. Dwight, you said some big terms in there, but I want to kind of ask a question, kind of a spinoff of what you said, which is you talked about call them money monsters, which is how we view money as humans, not just founders. It's a whole lot of stuff tied up in that, right? Like, is tied up in culture and how we were raised, and if you're poor or rich, and how you think about safety and security. What's some of the really dangerous narratives that we have as founders about our personal finances? What are the things that you've come across?
The dangers about our own money? Well, you know what? Sadly, most entrepreneurs, and remember, I've been dealing with entrepreneurs and helping businesses successfully set up and stay going when they listen, obviously, for this one in my 23rd year. And I think a lot of people don't realize that they put blinders on. And one of you mentioned, sorry, I can't remember which one, you talked about the fact that you just don't want to worry about it. Well, that attitude kills most entrepreneurs. And you talk about, yes, there is successful entrepreneurs out there, but you know what? A lot of successful entrepreneurs I sit down with, they still need help with the rules of the money game. They outmake their mistakes. Does that make sense?
Right? Yes.
They outmake their mistakes.
Sales covers so many bad financial decisions.
And then
Yes.
it filters down. How big is your entrepreneurship, right? Steve Jobs had tons of people. A lot of respect for that dude. But at the end of the day, you can be a single entrepreneur. You can have somebody of 10, 100, thousands. At the end of the day, it trickles down. Your lack of confidence in talking to people. Oh, we're always doing good. You have these boardroom meetings. I used to sit into them because I've been on different boards before. And I'll sit in on them and they're going on about all the positives and this and that. And I'm the guy going, okay, what about the other side? And they get like shocked. So you got pages of positive stuff to show us and put up PowerPoints or whatever. What about the bad side? What do we have to worry about? What if this happens in the world based on whatever they're doing? What if this happens and you get your product from here? Okay, you do this. What happens if we get a tsunami? You know what I mean? You have to have those conversations. And people just, they put blinders on. They really do. They are scared and they literally are living. I have clients that are so wealthy that I sit down with and they're still living on the hamster wheel because they're living in fear of knowing if they have enough money. So now if you dial back that millionaire to their personal finances, which I've done, and you actually show them how much they're succeeding, how much they're wasting, how much they're not saving for their future, how much they're not thinking about a tomorrow for their personal and their business. What happens if something happened and their business was reliant on one sector and it fell apart and they lost their business overnight? People, it happens, trust me. And then all of us, and especially in energy and oil and gas in Alberta, where I am, like we're the mini Texas, right, of North America. And bottom line, people need to understand the root of their life monsters, their money monsters affects them. Yes, you can get into a business and make millions, but have you prepared for it to go away? Have you been saving? Do you have a slush account for your specific business and a slush account for your personal? It cannot be together, but yet they are together. And I know that sounds confusing, but if your personal finances aren't in order, your business finances are following right along suit, right? So we really go ahead.
No, it's such a great point, Dwight. It's the thing that, Anthony, that always strikes me is that we're the first people to not pay ourselves. So when things start going bad and you start running out of money, I'm going to pay everybody else, but I'm not going to pay me. When the reality is that's like, businesses are designed to make money. That's what they're there for. And making money is good. You get to hire people. You pay taxes. You do good for society when you make money. But yet we're the ones that sacrifice first, Anthony. Like, why is that?
I think good founders do that. Frankly, I think you have the most to gain if things go right. Therefore, you should have the most to lose if things go wrong.
Dwight, what do you think? Are we crazy?
No, I agree, because I grew up with an entrepreneur father in a small community of 10,000 people. He owned a farm equipment dealership. Hey, I'm in 1.5 million now. Sometimes I wish I was back to 10,000. Come on. Yeah. there I could leave my door open, for goodness sakes. Anyway, we look back to the fact of, if you're a caring human being and you're looking at building an entrepreneurship, it's selfish intentionally, but initially you thinking about yourself, how you're setting it up and keeping healthy and taking care of your own business. But when you start bringing people on, that's part of a relationship of an umbrella over top of your entrepreneurship that people don't talk about. Hey, John, good to see you. Hey, Sally, great to see you. All of a sudden you're really connected to these people, and they have not what you have. They don't have a business. They're relying on that 9-to-5 job from you to pay for their extracurricular activities, for little Johnny and Sally to go off and pay for a little bit of fun maybe on the weekends for themselves. And they're just struggling. And if something happens in your business, is it their fault? Or is it your mismanagement of money, mismanagement of marketing, mismanagement of sales? I could go on and on and on, because I coach people on it, and we break it down. And at the end of the day, that person didn't ask for that. And I'm going to take a segue. This is it might not make sense, but it's like me when I became a single dad. I had joint custody of my kids, and eventually I got full-time custody of them, right? At the end of the day, I had to put their needs in front of mine, though a lot of dads wouldn't. I had to realize I had to scale back business. I had to realize that my people that work for me still had to be factored into that because they were my extended family. If I really cared about my business, if that makes sense. Yes, a business owner that has 1,000 people, it's not like you know everybody. But in a small entrepreneurship, it's really easy to know everybody, and they deserve to be thought of as number one. And you take the hit. I did it many times. That's why a good business has a proper finances set up and an operating line of credit for those dark days, the cloudy days.
I think it really hits at the and I want to get to some of the tactics we can deploy, but it really gets to that first and probably the biggest conflict we feel, which is to be a great leader. Simon Sinek famously said, leaders eat last, right? You have to make sure that other people are taken care of before you can. At the same time, you as a founder, like, we have to take care of ourselves and our family. I think about it sometimes from a board of directors or from a investor perspective, where if I look at overall risks, when the founder or CEO is not paying themselves, everything is more at risk. They leave, my whole company goes down, right? There's risk when you don't pay that. And so, I don't know, Dwight, help us think through that kind of difficult decision making.
Difficult. So what's the question? You're asking if it's difficult to pay them before you pay yourself?
How do we reconcile this idea that, yes, we should be taking care of our employees. However, if we put ourselves in severe financial problems, it's going to affect the business in very negative ways.
Oh, of course it is. So I have run into that where companies have gone through some difficult times. They're at the ceiling of their operating lines of credit just because something's gone on, right, in the industry sector that they're in. And I tell them they need to have heart-to-heart conversations with their staff and not pass it down to a sub-manager, depending on how big the business is. Have like a town hall meeting, right, and literally tell people, this is what we got. We're all going to get a little bit. I've also run into that before, so that everybody gets a little bit. What can you survive on? Now, that may sound drastic, and you're going to have fearful employees, but if it ever gets to that point, like you're talking about, that you're worried about your business collapsing, Chris, then you need to have that difficult conversation, because if people care about you and you've been a good boss throughout all this stuff, they will work with you. You'd be shocked. And those that don't work with you, they weren't meant to be there. They're the weak link. And it may sound harsh, but how many businesses throughout time, through economic uncertainty or things happening because of wars, pandemic, or whatever, have used it to shed staff? And the strong survive. The ones that really need to be there or want to be there are willing to work with the founder to make the company survive. And you give something up to them. And what do I mean by that? You say, hey, you know what? If you want to we want to accomplish this, we're struggling right now. If you work with me, we're going to make it through this. And this is what you're going to see on the other side. A bonus. Maybe we go maybe we can shut the company down and we go spend some time together, go hiking in the mountains. We go on a retreat. You gotta feed people's emotional and relationship bank throughout the relationship of employing them in order to take away from it in the struggles of the company, if that makes sense. You got to feed in order to take.
I think it's a great point. All right, so let's get to the more tactical type of stuff. So early on, what are some things that I can do that'll set myself up for success? And really, even as I get going, you mentioned a couple, you talked about a line of credit. What are some other tactical things that I can do just to set myself up for personal financial success?
Well, taking away the founder part of it and opening a business and just worrying about your own finances, you have to admit to yourself, Chris, first and foremost, what your challenges are. You have to admit that you had where it came from, and it can be raw. I've had people I've been sitting at their business, they've been, or they come and sit with me, or we have a video call, and they get emotional because they've never peeled back the layers of the onion. We've heard that phrase lots, but it's true. And in order to get your life in order and answer things, you need to go beyond just your money challenges and think to yourself, what am I representing myself right now to the world? Am I just a facade? I know that I'm a facade. I'm looking in the mirror, I brush my teeth, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm really I'm feeling imposter syndrome because my financial personal life is not functioning correctly. And what am I going to do? Well, most people don't know what to do. You can buy your finance books for dummies. You can buy this book and that book. It won't matter unless you deal with the 6 inches between your ears and admitting, oh my goodness, I learned this learned behavior from my parents. Oh my goodness, I learned this learned behavior from the people I've associated with. And I wanted to belong so bad because I was a picked on kid. I was a bullied kid. I had this going on. I had somebody die when I was younger. And I'm not discounting any of those reasons. They're all valid. You have to admit that that's a challenge. And then you start working through that. I started my personal development journey in 1993. It was not easy. I had to peel back the layers of my life. I was having a marriage that was failing, a bunch of kids. I was making a 6-figure income, yet we were broke all the time. I really had no short-term goals, no medium or long-term goals. And I was just flailing. Nobody ever said, hey, the most simplest thing you can do to get your personal life in order, it's called a budget. Oh, I don't like budgets. Those freak me out. That's controlling my life. Well, guess what? You let the government control your life. You go to school, you let the school control your life. You go to a boss and your employee, you're getting controlled. How about you control your own destiny? And I'm very compassionate with people. I'm just being more blunt because we don't have, I only have a certain amount of time. So you really have to sit down. The first thing I do is have conversations with my clients. I bring out goal sheets, like specific goal sheets, and then I let them mark things down, right? At least 3 they have to mark down. And then we start discussing it. And some of them that aren't entrepreneurs, they'll have them there. I want my own business. Some of them will say, well, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm suffering and personally and in business. And it's just breaking down and understanding if you break $1,000 and you don't have a contingency plan, and every single month you're making 1,000, spending 1,400, you're living in quiet desperation. So you need to goal set and budget together on a personal basis, but through that also dig in and take out that stuff that you buried from your childhood, maybe your teenage years, or maybe you were in business with somebody that screwed you over. Maybe you worked at a job where they owed you commission because you were a commission person and they never paid you. But the key is those 2 things, and it hasn't changed in 23 years. What are your goals based on SMART principles? Break them down. Tell me about your life. What does that have to do with money? Well, you're where you are because you're past. And when we admit it, doesn't mean we don't screw up, guys. I've still been back in the valley of despair. It's still happened a few times raising my kids. The difference is I had the tools and the knowledge to be able to correct that course. My own sail. I was my own co-pilot. I learned to be it that way.
When is the red flag that you're off course? Like, what are you talked about behaviors. What are the behaviors to say, hey, I'm off course? What have you seen? Did we lose you, Dwight?
Sorry.
Nope,
Yeah. Sorry for having to make the fix. So you asked that again. My headset completely went out.
Yeah, you mentioned getting off course and certain behaviors that are learned from. So I want you to give us some examples of where you've seen founders. Like, what are the signs that you are off course, and what are some of those behaviors that you've seen founders exhibit that you're like, oh, dude, you have to fix that?
Are you talking on a personal basis or their business?
Personal.
Personal
finances. Yeah.
Well, your personal finances, how do you know if you're off course? Well, the first thing is to understand your own internal triggers. And that may sound really weird, but and understanding something as simple as needs and wants. And then you think to yourself, people that are financially in trouble personally, what are the triggers? Well, some of the triggers are they go to bed at night and they think to themselves, oh my gosh, I went out and bought this today because I'm not feeling good, right? So they're having some buyer's remorse. And then they realize, oh goodness, this payment for my vehicle's coming out next week. I didn't know it all crashes at once. Now they're in the negative, they're in overdraft or whatever the case may be. And they just keep on that hamster wheel of life. Go to work, go home, get paid. Weekends, now they slip into this. maybe more deep than you want, but I've done it for 22 years. People slip into addictions, and they literally they mask everything that's they're feeling, and then they just keep on spending. They keep on spending. So even if they become aware of it, they mask it because of learned behaviors from the past. Nobody's ever questioning them and saying, hey, and I do it all the time. I have clients call me, hey, we got this and this and that. Bring up our budget. Or we just sent you our new budget. Can you look at it? Where can we find money? You can't. There's nothing here. Well, we really want it. Okay, what are you willing to sacrifice? Well, I don't want to sacrifice anything. Life is about give and take. If you're not willing to let me help you, you're going to be in the same place. Sorry, I don't mean to.
I think this is a great opportunity, Anthony, for you just to talk about all your screwed up behaviors. Like, so why don't nobody's gonna? We're not, like only a couple hundred people are gonna hear this. Why don't we just go ahead and we'll use this as a therapy session? Anthony.
I've spent way too much money in my life on Twinkies. I have.
I thought you were going to say audio video equipment, which you've done.
That is absolutely true. Yes, way too much money on AV equipment, but money well spent.
Yeah, I was going to say,
we can always justify. We can justify everything in our life. Absolutely.
I put tacos on top of that feeling, Dwight. So
well, I went from a 6-pack to a keg, so I've done my duty.
So, I may have a small taco addiction. Or maybe large. I don't know.
I don't know. Mine's pizza and pasta.
Tactically there, and I do think that there's a ton of wisdom in what you just said. We need to deal with our own relationship with money, and we need to figure out what are those things that we do. And when we do get in those moments of shame and what do we do to mask, and what do we do to try to ignore those feelings? And then, but tactically, you said, creating a budget and trying to stick to that budget there's a lot of just very basic tactical sense in doing that. We do it so often in businesses, and we tend to ignore that stuff in our family. What else? What does financial planning look like for founders? And maybe a little bit later, maybe once we've started to make a little bit of money and we realize we can pay our bills, and now we have to start thinking about savings and retirement and the value of the business. What does that next phase look like?
Well, to be honest, if you're going to be a founder and an entrepreneur, you should have some of that in a groundwork already. You should have some of that, have a conversation, have a business coach, somebody that can say to you, listen, okay, this is where we're looking to go. Now, when you're here, then we're going to branch out from here. Once you're here, then we'll work on it more. But here's the things that you have to look at. You have to not look at just the positives of all the money you're bringing in and start going and spending. You need to think long-term. Okay, now our business is doing this. Am I going to need new products, right? Because things are going to come up. I need new equipment. I might need to bring in more staff. I got to have that cushion. And you have to teach people that you need to have that slush fund. You need to start, as soon as you're starting to make money, you better have a slush fund. Or let's say you're still new enough in it, go to your bank. If you have a proper or loan company that have lines of credit, aren't as hard as people think if you have a decent business plan, like a cost profit benefit analysis. In Canada, that's the first thing they want to talk about, right? And a business plan. So if that person is struggling, they want to know, what are you going to do to get out of it, right? So we need to teach them how to plan. They're getting into their founder thing. They're starting to make money, and all of a sudden they're happy because they've been broke all their lives, and they go buy, I've had clients do this. They go buy a speedboat. They go start traveling, and they aren't even 5 years in. They haven't even proven the consistency of their what they want to do, what they want to accomplish, and they fall back. So it is so important to understand your inflows and outflows of money. Within that, structure your budget. At the bottom, you have all the things that are tied to saving money or needing to spend. Let's say, so you got January to December. In July, I'll tell my clients, okay, so we're doing this in March. By July, you're going to need this. We need to start funneling and saving money, not at the expense of the business. Maybe this isn't as priority as this is. So this is more of a priority. We need to work on this. But most entrepreneurs never get that help. They think they can read a book. Watch a podcast. It just doesn't, it's not enough. You need hands-on. You need somebody to call you on your stuff.
Anthony, I always found that when you're first starting a business and you didn't have any money laying around, those were easy. It's when you started having a little bit of money laying around that was hard, because then you got to go, okay, what do I pay myself? How much do I keep in the business? How did you make those decisions?
Yeah, it is easier starting with nothing than starting with something because you have nothing to lose.
Right. And it's like, well, there's no money. So it's like, well, I'm not going to pay myself. It's fine.
Yeah, and as you progress in your career, I've started and sold 6 companies. Everybody thinks it gets easier. It actually gets harder. You lose a little bit of that hunger. You lose the edge. And a lot of that has to do with finances. And the irony of it is that if you lose that edge, the finances follow. It's very easy for the finances to follow if you lose your edge and you lose that passion for building or customer service, or you try to delegate, or you try to pay somebody to do the stuff that you don't like to do. It can be very, resources can be very disabling.
Yeah. It's funny. It's you sometimes that time when you were most scared about money also becomes the moment that you're like, well, I was also most resourceful. We just figured it out. Dwight, we got to get to the speed round here, but I want to just give you one last chance. What other advice do you have for me as a founder? What things can I do early and often in my career to make sure that I'm personally planning for my financial success?
Well, let's take it outside of finances and go back to that 6 inches between your ears. If you're not constantly growing what your thought process is, to develop yourself into a critical thinker so that you can make conscious decisions about your life in a very quick fashion, yes, you can get there, but it takes work. And one of the number one things that makes that work is associations. So many of us have terrible associations, and it's not just people. It's what we listen to, it's what we watch, and then it's who we hang out with. So it's important for us to develop as an entrepreneur a group of like-minded people that will challenge us. We can challenge them. Some people call them a mastermind, whatever you want to call them. But you need to work on it. You need to read good books to feed your brain, and then have somebody hopefully to discuss it with, or somebody that's read it. And you can say, hey, what did you think of this book? What did you get from it? And constantly, otherwise, if we don't do that, Chris, we stay camped. We're flatlined our whole life. Our brain is a giant computer. It doesn't know the difference between the truth and a lie. It's our responsibility to feed it the truth that we want it to know. And it takes books, it takes podcasts, it takes conferences. I've been to hundreds of them, spoke at some, been there just to learn. The list goes on. So we really need to work on personal development outside of our finances, because the more we get control of our 6 inches, the more our finances will stay stable.
It's also why Anthony's so happy, is because he just hangs out with very, very poor people all the time. And so those homeless people that he hangs out with under the bridge.
Oh my goodness.
Feeling pretty okay.
6 businesses and you lived under a bridge? Holy.
All right.
I want your life, Anthony. I'm coming to move.
All right. That was a good segue. Dwight, here's our speed round. Save first or invest first?
Save first.
Emergency fund or business fund?
Emergency fund.
Pay off debt or build credit?
Pay off debt. It builds credit.
Yeah, exactly. That's both. Live frugally or spend on growth?
Spend on growth.
DIY finances or hire help?
Hire help.
I like
Softball.
it. Yeah, softball question there at the end. Really good conversation. Anthony, what did you learn from today's episode?
So the thing that I wrote down that stuck out to me is the Cody Sanchez quote: "Money is a cruel mistress. If you ignore her, she'll leave you for someone else." I love that. That's kind of one of the takeaways I took from this. Like, pay attention. Pay yourself first. It creates financial breathing room. Separate business and personal. Those are fairly obvious. Build an emergency fund, a slush fund, as you called it, Dwight. I wrote down, give yourself 6 months of runway to make decisions from strength, and then track every dollar, to reiterate on that. Make sure you know where everything is going and kind of be a hound for saving money.
I think it's terrific. Well, so as I'm pulling up our deep dive recommendations, Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, like terrific book. Your Money of Your Life by Vicki Robbins. Profit First by Mike Malowicz. And the Michalowicz. It's easy. My Texas mouth cannot say that. The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. And of course, the podcast, the website. Mr. Dwight Heck, where can we find out more information about you? Where can we listen to your awesome podcast? Learn all the good stuff.
Everything one-stop shop is all at giveaheck.com. You can find out about my speaking business, my coaching, my book, my finance business. You can literally, there's articles in there too that I get posted, that I write, but it's just a one-stop shop. My podcast, you can go on any podcast platform. It's on all of them. It's been going on, it's 249 episodes. I think I recorded my 249th here. I've been going 4.5 years. It's on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. You can go watch every single podcast since the first one. But yeah, I'm easily accessible. Just even if you just Google my name, you Google Give a Heck, it's the first thing you're going to see. You Google my name,
pops right up.
Yeah,
I do have
so that's the easiest. So go to my website.
I'd say one additional question. Anthony's got a huge head, so he's got like 8 inches between his ears, like not just 6.
I was actually thinking about getting a ruler and measuring that during the episode. Yeah. Like, I think this thing is big.
Yeah, his cranium is gigantic. It's huge. Look at it. It takes up.
Hey! Didn't you say that he eats Twinkies?
Yeah.
An extra 2 inches. There you go.
There it is. I think that's.
You got Twinkie brain, man. Twinkie brain.
Dwight, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening. Please be sure to visit howtofounder.com, where you can connect with us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify channels. Just a reminder, we feel like you are the pioneer of economic prosperity. We are grateful for being there with you along the way. Take care, everybody. Bye. Thanks, Dwight.